Hey students, it's Mr. Katz. Just wanted to go through how to justify equations. You don't always have to justify. When it asks you to justify, we're going to make a two-column. It's almost it's a what it is a proof, and each step you have to just give a rationale and the mathematical reasoning for why you justified it. What we're going to do with this though is I'm going to go through the answers of the last exit card. So use this not only as a to help with justification, but use this to help go over any mistake you made on the exit card. So here's number one, which for some students, this is actually, depending on what quiz you have, it's either number one or letter D. So this is the original problem. I wrote original. There's a 5 on both, there's a plus 5, so to move it over and to get canceled on this side, I did minus 5 on both sides. That's the subtraction property. And you're left with x over negative 3 equals 2. Now, to, to cancel out the dividing by negative 3, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 3, and that's the multiplication property. And you're left with x equals 2 times the negative 3, which is negative 6. Please also, if I'm going too fast, pause the video or rewind the video. Here's number 2, or letter C. Starts off with the original equation. You do want to get rid of the minus 8 or negative 8 at first by adding 8 on both sides. And that leaves you with this line right here. And that's the addition property since you're adding 8 on both sides. Here, you're going to now, the whole thing's being divided by 5, so we need to get rid of the division by 5. So we're multiplying by 5 on both sides. And 13 and 4/10 times 5 is 67. Left with 9y plus 4 equals 67. And the reason we multiplied by the same thing, that's the multiplication property. Now we're going to move the 4 over by canceling out here by subtracting 4, because here you're adding 4. So you're going to subtract 4 on both sides, which is the subtraction property. And you're left with 9y and 67 minus 4, which is 63. So we're going to divide by 9 on both sides, which is the division property. And 63 divided by 9 is 7. Here's number 3, which is letter choice, actually letter A, depending on what quiz you have. Original equation, I need to move all the x's on the same side. So there's a negative 2 and 3/10 x, so I'm going to add 2 and 3/10 x on both sides. What that's going to do is it's going to cancel it out here and move all the x's over to the same side. 13 and 7/10 plus 2 and 3/10 is 16. And you know, I wasn't trying to get rid of the number and separate the x from the coefficient, which is the number in front of it. But I'm just adding on both sides the same thing, which is the addition property. Now here I am going to move the negative 6 and 5/10 by adding 6 and 5/10 on both sides. It'll cancel it out here, and we're left with just 16x. And 8 and 3/10 plus 6 and a half is 14 and 8/10. And that's the addition property again because I added 6 and a half on both sides. Here now we're going to solve. We're going to get rid of the 16 by doing the inverse operation. So they're multiplying, so we're going to divide by 16 on both sides. And the x equals 14 and 8/10 over 16. That's the division property. But you do not want to leave your answer like this because it's better not to have decimals in your, if you have a fraction, you're not going to want to have a decimal within the fraction. So what I did is 14 and 8/10 divided by 16, and you get an answer of the decimal 0.925, or you could have also had the fraction 37 over 40. You could have gotten that by if you would have added, multiplied the numerator and denominator by 10, which would have kept the same fraction, but it just would have been without a decimal, and then reduced it all the way down to 37 over 40. Here, this one, there were a couple ways to solve this problem. Sometimes because there's two denominators, you could have multiplied both sides by 8. But what I noticed is that you have two fractions that are equal, so that's a proportion. So in order to get this into able to be solved, I cross-multiplied 8 times 7 plus 3g. So I'm going to put the 8 on the outside and multiply and distribute the 8 through. You're left with 56 plus 24g. And then I'm going to set that equal to the other cross multiple, which is 4 times negative, this is a negative 1g, which is negative 4g. And the rationale there is I cross multiplied because it's a proportion. This is the original equation. Now I'm going to have all my g's on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 24g on both sides. And left with 56, this cancels out, which equals -4 minus 24, which is -28g. And I subtracted on both sides, so that is the subtraction property. Last, I'm going to divide both sides, because I want to solve for g, by -28, and 56 divided by -28 is a -2. Those cancel out. I'm left with g equals a -2, and that is because I divided the same thing on both sides, which is the division property. Here, number 5, I'm going to go ahead and draw my 2 columns I have to justify, and this is also letter choice B. First of all, that's the original equation. First thing I'm going to do is distribute. So I'm going to distribute the -3 to both things, both terms in there. Get -6n plus 15, because a -3 times -5, which equals, and I'm going to distribute the 0.5, which is when you multiply by 0.5, it's like dividing by 2. You're left with 6n plus 15. And the reason why I did that, I had that line, I distributed, so that's the distributive property. So some students thought that maybe you had the same thing on both sides, but you don't, because one of the sides has -6n and the other one has +6n. So we're going to go ahead and put all our n's on the same side. I'm going to add 6n on both sides. That way it'll cancel out here, and I'll have on one side 12n plus 15 is equal to 15. And that was the addition property. Next, I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides so that I can move that, so I can cancel out and start looking to isolate my n. Cancels out there. 15 minus 15 is 0. That's okay. 0 equals 12n, and there I subtracted on both sides, so that's the subtraction property. And last, I'm going to solve for n by it's being multiplied by 12, so I'm going to divide both sides by 12. 0 divided by 12, well, 0 divided by anything is 0. So I get my final answer of n equals 0. And that is because I divided the same thing on both sides. That's the division property. And the last one, I'm sorry, that there was only 5 problems. I hope that helps. Go ahead and go back and pause the video when you need to. I hope that helped with your exit card.